Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into three completely unbelievable case files that prove fatal danger doesn't just lurk in dark alleys, it hides in the absolute most mundane, everyday places. We always think of danger as this obvious thing, right? Something we can spot a mile away. But the truth is, sometimes the biggest, most final changes to our lives come from things we literally barely even glance at. So think about a living room wall, an old oak tree, and a simple glass of water. What on earth do they have in common? It sounds like a random assortment of stuff, but by the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly how these three totally ordinary items became agents of inevitable fate. We're going to unpack three historical and modern tragedies, all linked by things that were just sitting right there, completely ignored. Because here's the thing, danger absolutely hides in plain sight. We completely misdirect our fears. We're always looking over our shoulder for the obvious villain, the shadow in the corner, when the real threat is quietly sitting right in front of our faces. And it's that sheer mundanity that makes these three events so incredibly shocking. All right, let's jump right into case file 1, the deadly green wallpaper. Okay, picture this. It's 1907, Westville, Indiana. A 45-year-old woman named Mary Watson thinks she's just married the absolute perfect guy, Zach. He's smart, he's charming, runs the local post office. Classic honeymoon phase. But Zach actually had this incredibly dark cloud hanging over him, and Mary's sisters were terrified. See, Zach's first two wives had mysteriously died exactly a year apart, both in March, after these really sudden, violent illnesses. Fast forward to March 1907, Mary is just doing some routine spring cleaning, sweeping cobwebs off the parlor ceiling. Out of nowhere, she gets lightheaded, has this intense stomach cramp, collapses, and is dead by 1 p.m. I mean, it completely screams serial killer, right? Mary's sister Nancy was absolutely convinced Zach was murdering his wives. So the very next day, Nancy is out for blood, ready to prove Zach did it. She and the town doctor walk through the house, actively looking for poisoned food or tainted silverware. But when they step into that parlor where Mary had been cleaning, the doctor just stops, dead in his tracks. He doesn't point at Zach. He points at a dusty old broom and a step stool sitting in the middle of the room. And he drops this chilling line. "I know what happened." Now, this is where the science of the era comes into play, and it's wild. The doctor wasn't pointing at a murder weapon. He was pointing at the spring cleaning tools. Back in the early 1900s, that parlor was covered in this really ugly, bright green wallpaper. And to get that specific vibrant green dye, manufacturers used a massive amount of arsenic, highly toxic. So when Mary and the two wives before her used that broom to sweep the walls every March, they were actually kicking up these invisible, deadly clouds of arsenic particles. They were literally inhaling poison straight from their living room decor. So, as completely suspicious as it looked, three wives dying in the exact same month in the exact same house, Zach was completely innocent, not a serial killer at all. The true culprit was the physical walls of their own home. It was the wallpaper. Zach survived, ripped that wallpaper down immediately, and actually went on to marry a fourth wife who, thankfully, outlived him. Let's move on to our next bizarre file and see how fate can seriously hold a grudge. Case File 2, the 20-year bullet. This one starts back in 1885 in Minnesota. A young guy named Henry Zegland cruelly breaks off a long-term engagement to his fiancée, Maisie. He basically ruins her social standing, and tragically, this drives Maisie to take her own life. Well, fueled by absolute rage and grief, Maisie's older brother, Filford, tracks Henry down on his farm, armed with an old Civil War musket, and shoots him point blank in the head. But miraculously, the bullet just grazes Henry. It ricochets off his skull and buries itself deep into a massive oak tree behind him. Filford, thinking he failed, tragically ends his own life right there. And Henry, he feels zero guilt. He marries a wealthy widow, gets rich, and lives this fantastic life for 2 whole decades. He thought he totally got away with it. Until March of 1905, when Henry is clearing some land and decides he wants to blow up that exact same stubborn oak tree. And this is where Henry's past finally catches up to him in literally the most unimaginable, cinematic way possible. The wood is too tough to chop, so Henry jams dynamite right into the hollow of the trunk. He and his teenage son light the fuse, run about 50 feet away to watch, and the dynamite goes off. But the explosion doesn't just splinter the tree. The massive force of the blast catches that specific Civil War bullet that had been lodged inside the wood for 20 years, rockets it straight out of the trunk, and hits Henry directly in the head, killing him instantly.
It's absolutely unbelievable. Vilford never actually missed his target back in 1885. The universe just kind of hit the pause button. It took that bullet 2 full decades of waiting in the dark wood of an oak tree, combined with Henry's own dynamite, to finally finish the job.
Our final case brings us much closer to the present day. Case File 3, the fatal metal straw. This case focuses on a woman named Lena, who was trapped in this really tragic downward spiral of immense physical suffering. For nearly 40 years, Lena dealt with agonizing, constant back pain. When she was just 21, she was a competitive horse jockey, and a brutal riding accident completely damaged her spine, leaving her with severe scoliosis. The pain was so intense, she would regularly just collapse to the floor, totally writhing in agony. To really understand this tragedy, we have to look at how she managed that pain. Initially, doctors prescribed her fentanyl, which is a highly powerful narcotic, but she started showing signs of severe addiction, so they rightly had to cut her off. Left with absolutely no relief, Lena turned to a dangerous new coping mechanism. She started self-medicating, drinking about half a liter of vodka every single day. She'd mix it with orange juice and just carry it around her house in a mason jar that had this sturdy, reusable metal straw. It became her constant companion just to numb the awful pain.
Then, one evening, her wife Mandy is sitting in the living room and watches Lena stumble into the kitchen for a refill. A few moments later, Mandy hears this horrible, strange gurgling sound. She rushes in and finds Lena dead on the kitchen floor. Now, given Lena was drinking half a liter of vodka daily, it is so incredibly easy to assume the heavy drinking had directly claimed her life. Everybody would assume that. But was it actually the alcohol? The autopsy revealed an entirely different, completely heartbreaking reality. Lena actually wasn't drunk at all that night. She had just gone into the kitchen because she was thirsty and wanted some plain water. That stumbling her wife saw, it wasn't intoxication. It was just her typical agonizing back spasms. While she was filling her cup with water, a sudden spasm caused her to trip. She fell directly downward and her eye socket landed perfectly on the upturned metal straw of her mason jar. The straw impaled her, puncturing her brain and causing a massive, fatal injury. The alcohol didn't kill her. A simple, innocent fall onto an everyday household item did. It is just devastating. In the ultimate cruel irony, it wasn't the heavy drinking and it wasn't the powerful prescription drugs that took Lena's life. It was a completely sober trip to get a simple glass of water that resulted in her unpredictable, tragic demise. Which brings us to these completely unpredictable twists of fate. When we bring all these incredible case files together, from 1885 to 1907 to 2018, we're really forced to look at the sheer fragility of human life. Think about it. We put so much effort into avoiding danger. We look both ways before we cross the street. We avoid dark alleys. We obsessively lock our doors at night. But look at what actually happened here. Sweeping cobwebs off a ceiling, clearing a tough piece of wood on a family farm, walking into your own kitchen to get a late-night drink of water. None of these victims were doing anything inherently dangerous. They weren't jumping out of airplanes. Their fates were sealed by the absolute most mundane, everyday chores imaginable. It's a pretty humbling thought, isn't it? If fate can literally hide in floral wallpaper, an old tree trunk, or a drinking straw, how much control do we truly have over our own ending? It leaves you wondering, as you sit there looking around your own room right now, what perfectly ordinary, completely mundane objects might secretly be writing the final chapter of your story? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes open and I'll catch you next time.